Good morning, Your Honor. Before we begin, I would like to submit the notice that I would audio record.
It's recorded. You know we're recorded anyway. I'll take a look at that. Do you have a copy for the state, Mr. Dean? Copy of the motion?
I do not. I'd be happy to go now.
Please show that to the state. All right, Mr. Dean, I will grant that motion. All right, this is scheduled for a trial. There's one charge of an equipment violation regarding a headlamp. Are both sides ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, have a seat for right now.
Your Honor, just as a preliminary matter, Attorney Halverson was here earlier this morning and did have some conversations with the defendant, Mr. Ian. And during those conversations, they agreed to submit this video, which if the court would like me to do now, I can enter as a full exhibit.
Okay.
And also, it's my understanding that the defendant has a map that he also wishes to submit, and the state has no objection to that either.
All right, so the first, and what is this a video of, just for the record?
That is a video of the encounter in which I received the citation. Now we are in court.
So that will be State's Exhibit 1 and Defendant's Exhibit A by agreement, and the second is Defendant's, I'm going to just change that to Defendant's B, okay, since we're doing the other defendants in both. And that is a map, and that is being introduced as a full exhibit as well. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the state calls Sergeant Michael Kroll for a stand. Sergeant, if you just go and stand and remain standing, please. Your Honor, would you please swear in the witness?
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may have a seat.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Sergeant Michael Pearl. Last name is spelled P-E-A-R-L.
Sergeant Kroll, what is your occupation?
I'm a sergeant with the Concord Police Department.
How long have you been with the Concord Police Department?
It will be 13 years in January.
And how long have you been a sergeant?
Since September of 2008.
Is this your first job in law enforcement?
Yes.
Sergeant, I'd like to direct your attention to June 19th, 2011, around 2:27 a.m. Were you on duty on that morning?
I was.
What were your responsibilities on that date and time?
I was assigned to the patrol division as a patrol division supervisor.
Did you come into contact with somebody by the name of Ian Garret on that evening or morning?
I did.
Do you see Mr. Garret in the courtroom today? Can you please identify him, describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
You see the defense table with a dark blue blazer.
Your Honor, would the record please reflect that the witness has identified the defendant?
Yes, and just so the record's clear, it's Garret Ian.
I apologize, yes, Garret Ian. So, Sergeant, can you describe for the court how you came into contact with Garret Ian?
I was traveling on White Street by White Park, and I saw 3 bicyclists coming down Beacon Street, being in an easterly direction. And as they were traveling down Beacon, I came to the end of White, which intersects with that, and I saw the 3 bicyclists, and they turned from Beacon onto Rumford Street southbound.
When you saw the bicyclists turning onto Rumford Street, did you actually see them bicycling at this time?
I saw them from White Street. I
Okay.
saw the 3 bicyclists go by on Beacon.
Okay, and were they riding bicycles?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can you please describe for the court, at that time of night, or that early in the morning, what it's like outside?
It's dark.
It's dark out, okay. And do you remember the weather on that particular evening by any chance?
I think it was like rain, like misting.
Okay, thank you. So did you have contact with Mr. Ian?
I did.
And can you please describe to the court how you actually came into contact with him?
As I came around that intersection of Beacon and Rumford, one of the bicyclists was actually down, almost like he had fallen
with him at that point?
I did.
And what were those conversations?
I asked him if he had a headlight for his bicycle, and he said he wouldn't answer my question. Then I asked about ID, and he said he didn't have one on him.
Did you actually see a headlight on his bicycle?
There was no headlight on the bicycle.
So based on that, what did you do?
I issued him a motor vehicle summons.
After you issued the motor vehicle summons, what happened?
I left.
And did Mr. Ian leave as well?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, would the record please reflect that Rumford and Beacon Street are both ways in the city of Concord?
So noted.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state has no further questions at this time. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Ian, this is your opportunity to cross-examine this witness, and just to be clear, it's not the time for you to testify on your own behalf. If you wish to do that, you certainly will have that opportunity. But right now, it's your opportunity to cross-examine this witness.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Pearl, you said you've been a sergeant with the Concord Police Department since 2008? And what length of time have you been the midnight shift supervisor?
Probably early 2009. I had a 6-month tour of evening shift supervisor, and then went to midnights.
What do your duties entail?
I oversee the shift.
So the other officers report to you?
Yes.
You began your testimony today, and it's consistent with your written report of notes from after the event, that you were traveling on White Street when you observed bicyclists, correct?
Yeah.
Do you recall how soon after the event it was that you wrote your notes on the incident?
I don't.
Maybe in a few days?
No, not usually. It's not that long of a time frame.
Do you consider your written testimony to be an accurate record of events?
Sure.
Do you consider your written testimony to be a complete record of events?
Your Honor, I'm just going to object to the use of the word testimony as to the written version. I believe he's referring to the officer's report in this case. And his testimony would be the oral testimony that he just gave under oath to this court.
Just to differentiate, the police report has not been introduced into evidence or the notes that you're referring to.
Okay.
So what he has, the state indicated, what Sergeant Earl has said orally is the testimony. If there's something that you're trying to impeach or something, what you would need to do is first say you wrote this report, ask him if he needs it to refresh his recollection. I'm not sure that's where you're going, but that would be the steps you would need if that's what you're trying to do.
Okay, excuse me, I'll overstate. Would you consider your testimony today to be a complete record of the events that evening?
A complete record? No. The notes on the back of my summons are just exactly what they are, notes to refresh my memory.
Do you remember if there's anything that you may have written in your notes that actually excuse me? Mr. Pearl, you're familiar with the form that one officer would write their notes on after they do review an incident, and make a record of it. So on the notes that were written, it says that you are to document and lists 5 instances, any specific action of violator which increased the hazard of the violation. Do you recall if there was any specific action of the violator which increased the hazard of the violation?
I don't know what that form is that you're talking about.
What you would do is ask permission to approach the witness, and then you can show them.
Okay, permission to show this morning.
And have you seen what that is?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, you may.
top
The
paragraph.
back of the summons. Yep.
Mhm. And you'll note that there are 5 points that it says to address in the notes. What do you feel from the criteria might meet each of those points? And you can start with number 1 and see the question asked. Any
Well,
action of the violator.
Well, number 1 is dark out, and you should have a headlight on as required by the statute. Where the violation was observed and where the contact was made, there's traffic flow there. Total distance traveled during pursuit, there was really not applicable. Statements by the violator and the general attitude, I wrote down what our conversation was. In number 5, place of employment, didn't feel that applicable at that time.
Okay. So you will note in your written testimony that it was audio recording, correct? I mean, excuse me, your testimony. You will note in your notes from the incident that you recall that I was recording, correct?
You said that. Yeah, you said that.
Okay. So just to clarify, do you feel that there were any, I can usually just scratch that. And as you noted, the total distance traveled during pursuit did not apply in this instance.
Yeah, pursuit, but it was a chasing after everybody, so I wouldn't use that word pursuit.
So, as bicycle, I was never detained. You allege that while I was bicycling, I was never detained.
I didn't say that.
Your citation states that the stop occurred around 2:30 a.m. Do you recall seeing any foot or vehicular traffic at that time?
That particular time, I don't know.
Is there usually foot or vehicular traffic around 2:30 a.m.?
There's definitely vehicle traffic.
But you don't recall any from that evening?
I don't recall.
Okay. So, traffic conditions may be an example of a specific action which increased the hazard of the violation. If there's heavy traffic, of course, it's dangerous to be on roads without a light, but if there's less traffic, it changes the hazard of the conditions. Would you agree?
I think it depends on the situation.
But you didn't note any traffic. Do you recall what you were doing that morning prior to this encounter?
The beginning of my shift?
Your shift began around 2:30?
No. That was 11.
Okay, were you doing anything prior to encountering the bicyclists at the place that you lived?
Other than driving around? No.
Okay, so you testified that you were driving at that time when you encountered bicyclists?
Yes. I saw the bicyclist while I was driving.
You testified today that, and you just testified now, that you were traveling on White Street when you observed 3 bicyclists turn from Beacon onto Rumford. May I have the defense exhibit? Officer Crowley would agree that Rumford Street is parallel to White Street.
You may want to approach the witness again.
Permission to approach.
Correct. Can I ask that question again,
So you would agree that Rumford Street is parallel to White Street, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and you said that you were traveling at the time that you were traveling on White Street at the time that you saw bicyclists turn right from Beacon onto Rumford.
Correct.
So you were at the very end of the street, because where else from White Street could you observe a turn from Beacon onto Rumford?
Correct.
So you testified that you were at the end of the street when you looked at the bicyclists.
I was on White Street.
Okay. Officer Pearl, are you familiar with the parking lot in White's Park?
The parking lot in White Park? Sure.
Excuse me, White Park. You will see the distance from the parking lot to Beacon Street.
What distance am I looking at?
I was wondering if you, let me rephrase that. Could you note the distance from the parking lot on White Street to Beacon Street?
No?
Well, if you'll notice, there's a little scale down here. There's 100 meters, there's of course 100 meters being over 300 feet. And there's the distance between the parking lot and Beacon Street. But you testified that you were driving on White Street. So, go on to the next question. Oh.
That would be for Mr. McKee.
For what reason did you decide to follow the bicyclists?
I'm sorry?
For what reason did you decide to follow the bicyclists?
I noticed one bike stick back light.
Okay. And this was while you were traveling perpendicular to the travel of the bicyclist?